She gnaws through the nubby knuckle. She said that she would rather eat her moon plume poo to a steak. He just snatches her up, and it will just make your little cottagecore heart sing and pushing, and like, I can't handle it. Hey guys, welcome back. So I literally just ended one vlog just to start another vlog. Alright, I'm gonna do another reading vlog where I read one book. There are gonna be spoilers because this is like my open thoughts as I'm going along. The book I'm gonna read is When the Moon Hatched by Sarah A. Parker. I've actually tried to read this book at a previous date and I DNF'd it. I almost got rid of it. But then I saw one of my favorite YouTubers talking about how she gave this one a second chance and read the second book and said it was amazing. So that being said, we're going to give it another chance. Wish me luck. All right, so here are the annotating materials. We have some different colored post-its. We're going to go with a blue, green, white, gray theme. So sorry, the color is really like overexposed. All right, then I have just a blue pen, my zebra mild liners, like 2 shades of blue. One's like really, really light, and the other one's darker, brighter, and then purple and and gray. There we go. There's like the colors. Okay. This little turtle bookmark. So in the back here, I created a little bit of a dashboard with just little mini stacks things. And then I have this key here, plot gray, romance pink, and then I don't know about some of the others. I'll just have to start reading it to figure out what fits. And here is a lovely map. It looks really interesting. Okay, I feel like I should refresh on what this book is even about so I can know what to expect. As an assassin for the rebellion group, I don't know how to pronounce that name. Rave's job is to complete orders and never get caught. When a rival bounty hunter turns her world upside down, blood spills, hearts break, Rave finds herself imprisoned by a guild of nobles, a group of powerful fae who turn her into a political statement. Crushed by the loss of his great love, Can Vager took the head of the king and donned his melted crown. Now on a tireless quest to quell the never-ebbing ache in his chest, a clue lures him into the capital's high-security prison, where he stumbles upon the imprisoned Rave. Echoes of the past race between them. What? Is it second chance romance? There's more to their story than meets the eye, but some truths are too poisonous to swallow. Let's get into it. This is crazy. So we have a large glossary. This is a lot. Oh my goodness. Okay, we have different creatures and beings. And then we have characters. And then we have a pronunciation guide. These I actually very, very much appreciate. This is beautiful. Like these cover pages. And I know there's other art throughout the book. These chapter pages are absolutely beautiful. And I saw some others. Okay, so it looks like we have a story. And we also have a diary. But yeah, there's other like graphics like this in the story. I am going to skim through a little bit of the front here before I start reading. I keep having issues with this like disconnecting from my mic. Anyways, all right guys, it is time for an update. I'm about to start chapter 11 in this book. I'm loving it so much. So much stuff keeps happening. But I want to backtrack a little bit because I forgot to mention back in chapter 7, there are these things called parchment larks, and they are so endearing to me. I don't know what it is. I just really love them. It reminds me of like the flying letters from Harry Potter. But essentially they're like these little origami birds and they're letters. So you would write parchment lark and then you send it off and it goes and flies to its recipient. But then if it doesn't find its recipient, it becomes like a ghost lark. And I really love how they're on the page. Like our main character like walks into a shop and there's a bunch of them like fluttering around in the corner of the store or whatever. And so I don't know what it is about them. I just love them. I think they're so cool. Such a nice little touch. Okay, so then skipping forward into chapter 9, we learn a lot about Rave and her job as an assassin, the dynamics. So Rave is actually summoned to Sereme's. That's how I'm pronouncing her name. It's Sereme.
She's summoned to Sereem's office, and I just say, this woman, I love the color purple, but this woman takes purple to a whole nother level. She is like head to toe, like purple outfit, purple office, perfect purple chair, purple rug, like everything is purple. It makes me like want to make her office in The Sims. This woman, Serene, is the boss, and it's kind of interesting. So she found Rave dying in a gutter, and she offered her a chance. She could save her life if in exchange for her service. Now, Serene also takes a bit of blood and puts it in this vial from Raven, all the other assassins. And this gives her like leverage over them. Like they're tied to her now because she has their blood. And what she ends up doing is like sticking her finger in the vial, and she can cause like physical pain to anyone that she's gotten employs. But it just so happens that she only has to ever use it on Rave because she's very outspoken, very resentful of the situation. So they do kind of go rounds and they're arguing about how she doesn't appreciate what she has going on there. She feels like a prisoner. But then Serene is like, you have a good life. Like, you make money. You were dying. I saved your life. Thanks. You're welcome. And they kind of go back and forth. So you really get a feel for that dynamic. Also, Serene actually has to report to somebody called the Elding. So I'm guessing they're like even higher up than Serene. So that's the whole hierarchy of the assassins group that Rave is part of. It seems like Serene actually probably does care about Rave a lot and just touts her as like a resentful teenager or something. Not that she's a teenager, but like, I don't know. She just seems like she does probably care about her probably more than Rave even realizes. There was a situation where there was like trafficked nulls. That's what they call them when they don't really have any magic. They were like trafficked or something like that. And
Hey guys, good morning. So it is Tuesday morning. We had an amazing weekend. It was super, super fun. Had my best friend and I went on a weekend getaway and just had a really good time. I did do a little bit of reading since then. Again, let me get my notes out. Where I left off was at the end of chapter 10, and since then I have read chapter 11. And I noticed something really weird about the chapter breaks. So if there is a letter, an LUN letter in between chapters, it's counted as a chapter because we go from chapter 11, which is a normal chapter, then we go to a letter, and then we go to chapter 13. So it was kind of weird. It took me a minute because as I'm making my chapter by chapter notes of things that I want to make sure that I talk about, I was like, I would write, okay, I ended at chapter 11, so the next one is chapter 12. But then I'm looking at the book and I'm like, wait a minute, what's happening? Why are we on chapter 13? Did I miss something? So I felt like I was losing my mind, but no. So, anyways, where we're at with chapter 11, we get a look at where our main character lives. She lives with a roommate named Essie. She feels kind of bad for not letting Essie in emotionally. Essie shows a lot of care for our main character, and when she does this, our main character kind of shuts it down emotionally. Back in her room, she has a parchment lark that she kept in a box. Apparently, this parchment lark found her about 5 years earlier, and she believes that it's lost. So the story is that this lark found her, she unfolded it, and she goes, well, this isn't for me. So she tried to send it back off out into the world to go find its true home, but it came back to her. So now she just kind of keeps it as a companion. It's kind of weird to me, but she snuggles with it when she sleeps, which, okay, whatever. The message on this parchment lark is I need you, and it is signed by a name Nee, N-E-E. I personally think it was always meant for her, and I think that eventually she's going to realize it somewhere along the line in the plot, because as we know, she was found broken, battered, dying. And so I think that this might be somebody that she's acquainted with that she believes has perished. And maybe that's not the case. Eager to see where that's going to lead. Then we go into a letter by Eluin, and Eluin stows away with her brother on his journey to the mountains because she also wants to try to get a moon plume egg. All right, so then we're going to jump into chapter 13, and we are in a different point of view. We are in the point of view of Khan Vegor, who we learn is the Prince of the Burn and the brother of
Kadok, as well as who's his other brother? Oh, Tyroth and Vea. So he's one of four. He is meeting Kazari Vagor, who is his niece and the daughter of Tyroth. She is the princess of the shade, making her father Tyroth is the king of the shade. Okay. I feel like I did not explain that well. Through the narrative, we get to kind of see a little glimpse of her troubled youth. It seems like her father was kind of harsh, and Khan brings up a moment when he finds her hiding in his secret spot. She calls Khan to meet her because she is having some weird experiences. She says that she's hearing him. Okay, so Kizari is in possession of the Aether Stone. She wears it on like a tiara or something on her head, and ever since she was bestowed the Aether Stone, since she was little, she has been hearing different voices and stuff like that. And there have been ways to kind of hush the voices, but for whatever reason doesn't really like that. Either way, she wants Khan's help to free him, and her reason is because she has fallen in love with him. And Khan is, of course, disturbed by this. He also has a very this reaction of just the fact that she has been hearing this voice. So I think that he knows a lot about this thing, which was going to become unraveled, I guess, as the story goes on. All right, so then the next chapter, chapter 14, is back to Rave's point of view. And in this chapter, Essie gets stabbed by Rek. She couldn't save her life because it was just the damage was too much and she didn't have time to take her to her boss to fix her up. And so Essie ends up dying in her arms, and this forces her to confront how emotionally shut off she's been, and now she really feels guilty about being emotionally shut off from Essie because now she'll never get the opportunity to tell her she loves her and all that stuff. So she also realizes that this was actually Rek trying to smoke her out because Essie was left with the dagger that stabbed her, and it has Rek's engraving on it. So that also means that he has learned where she lives. So now I have just barely started chapter 15, and this is a weird perspective. It is a perspective of the other. And I don't know what that means. It's really weird. It's like this person it's like this entity or something that is watching over Rave, watching her after what had just happened and kind of narrating what is going on. And I don't know what to think about this. This is really weird. It's kind of throwing me for a loop. So we'll just have to see how that unravels. It is about time for me to go ahead and head off to the gym, and hopefully I'll get some more reading done today. But I definitely wanted to go ahead and do a little bit of an update because I feel like a lot has happened and we've got new point of views. It's time for me to go. My friend is going to be waiting for me, so I will catch up with you later. Okay, so chapter 15 was weird. It was the first chapter. It takes the point of view of the other. It talks like somebody who is almost stalking our character, like watching what they're doing, until this line. A ruthless smile spreads across the other's face, no longer reminiscent of her fiercely beautiful host, now sharp and savage, monstrous. Is there like a person living in Rave's head? Okay, do you remember where we were talking about how there's this like hooded figure that had his eyes on her? Okay, so Rave gets shot with iron. The other realizes that she's been shot with iron. So she spins toward the barred entryway, gaze narrowing on the Fae behind it, armed with a slingshot that rests against the bars, pointed at her. Tossing a black hood off his head, the male shucks his cloak to reveal black leather pants and loose white shirt that's particularly undone at the neck. He has long pale hair, cerulean eyes. He has red and brown beads. I'm not 100% sure what these beads are yet. I know that they signify what elements that they can use. Also, it says that Rave should have two beads instead of a null clip. So this hooded figure is Rek Zaros, the guy responsible for killing her roommate. You're the one who killed Essie, she growls. He says, the little redhead. I'm really surprised that they're going to have it out right now, but all right, let me read on. He does actually capture her, and I'm shocked. Rek snatches the bloody veil exposing her. His eyes widen, and she snarls through clenched teeth, jerking against her binds. Not at all what I was expecting, Rec murmurs. Seems a shame to feed such a pretty, powerful thing to the dragons. With a snap of her teeth, she snags his finger and bites hard. Okay, this is hilarious. She gnaws through the nubby knuckle with the fervor of a famished beast. It pops free, the severed tip dropping into her mouth. She spits the tip, boasting a smile. He tips his head and roars with laughter. That was just like so weird. Quick recap of chapters. So in chapter 19, Rave is just in prison. We get to meet a fuzzy clawed creature named Rook. It's spelled Wrook. Then we get another letter where we find that Eluin and her brother were attacked by doom quills. Her brother will be able to walk again, and the moon plume was just about to hatch when they became under attack, and it seems that the moon plume's got a messed up wing, which affirms my theory that the little moon plume, the moon that's up in the sky, is probably the brother's moon plume, right? There's that. Okay, so I just finished chapter 21, and oh my goodness. So the king comes into the prison. We don't know that he's the king yet. He comes into the prison and he talks to Rook about a deal that he can buy his sentence for stealing in exchange for these moon shards. And Rave is like reflecting to herself, she's like, moon shards? Who would hunt moon shards? So we, as the reader, have no idea what this is, what it does. Obviously, it's going to be pretty important. But as he's about to leave, he does take a look at Rave, who's like in the shadows, so he can't get a clear look at her. She's all full of spit and vinegar, and he does come into her cell to get a closer look at her, and he recognizes her. She does not recognize him, and he says some other things while they're bantering back and forth and talking that like he knows her. He's like, stubborn as always, and she's like, what the hell, like as if you know me. So she's got like some memory issues. She then finds out that he is in fact a king, but he's like in disguise. I am just dying to know what's going on. Hey guys, welcome to August. It is August 1st, and I am in my room. I'm going to try to read as much of this as I can to get going on this vlog. Apparently, I have a lot more audiobooks checked out that have come in, so I would like to make some headway on this book so that I can get into my audiobooks. I am looking to have a little bit of balance this weekend to kind of work on a couple of projects. I have this sewing project I really would like to get going on, so I want to read a ton of this, but I also want to carve out a little bit of time to work on that. Here we are. All right, it's almost 1 o'clock. Actually, my day got away from me. I woke up really late, and then I also laid in bed for a little bit, so I didn't actually get out of bed till kind of late, and then we made like a late breakfast, and I prepped some potatoes and some hard-boiled eggs and stuff for later on. Now I get to read. So I did finish chapter 22, and Rave is at her trial. They have arrested her for all of the brutal murders that she has done. This trial honestly is pretty funny, for one, because Rave, she pushes them. She does not act like they're getting to her. She's like, what's even the point of playing my case? You've already determined it, so I might as well tell you everything I think about you. She loves to tell them how small their private parts are, which is so funny to me. There's one little thing that I don't know that I love about this is because she's trying to play like she is a vigilante. And perhaps the rebel group that she belongs to is, in a way. However, this last incident that she got caught doing, she was completely out of her mind because the other had taken over. So she went and murdered a bunch of just soldiers trying to do their job. So I don't really feel that that falls in line with vigilante work. And then even Rex, I get that he's like this cruel person. He's a bounty hunter, but at the same time, he's just doing his job. Is he really the bad guy, or is it a corrupt system? I don't want to get too caught up on that. I just it was something I was thinking about, so I wanted to go ahead and mention it. I did actually appreciate how the trial actually went down because they requested evidence of her crimes, or they have two different types of sentences. She can either be drawn and quartered or fed to the dragons. And there is a committee that actually votes on how they would like to sentence her. She also has the opportunity to say she's either guilty or not guilty. And I don't know that there's many fantasy books that I've read that have this kind of rules to their trials. So maybe there is, and I just don't remember it. But, anyways, I just wanted to say that. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and get into chapter 23 and read a little bit before I give. And maybe we'll see, because it does seem like there is something that's happening every single chapter. There is a little bit of something about the writing style that somebody said it was very lyrical. I don't know that I would say that the writing style is lyrical, but it is a little bit long-winded for my taste. I definitely am seeing parts where we're talking, but not a whole lot is being said. So I will kind of skim read over those parts and pick up where it's actually like important. It's not really bothering me, but when I'm in particularly reading critically, it does make me like hone in on some of those things a little bit more than probably I would. I wasn't expecting excellent writing to begin with, so there's that. But yeah, I wouldn't say that the fault of the writing is because it's excessively lyrical. I just think it's long-winded. Let's see, where is it? I'll try to find an example. There is a lot of description of like what people are wearing, what they look like, and I think some people don't like that. I personally like that. I feel like there's differences of excessive descriptive language or excessive descriptions of things that don't necessarily matter. But I really like when we spend at least a little bit of time, even just 1 to 2 sentences, explaining the character that they're speaking of and kind of what they look like and what they're wearing, because I feel that it really helps give a picture in my mind of what they look like. I did find an example of what I was kind of talking about in chapter 22. Throughout this chapter, the two primary characters that the scene is about are talking back and forth. Chancellor is grilling her and he says, "I do not appreciate your attitude," he scolds. The other nobles murmuring behind each other while they leer down at me, passing me looks of disgust. Then further down on the page it says, "The upper mezzanine erupts in a riot of sound, the nobles looking between each other, some of them throwing their hands in the air as they heave words towards the chancellor. The chancellor hammers his gavel against the table 3 times over, silencing the racket. She says, I cock a brow. Is that a rhetorical question, or did you want me to answer? The nobles murmur between each other while I rock back and forth on the balls of my feet. Desperate to be done with this. I have a bowl of slop calling my name. All those in favor of the prison 73 being drawn and quartered next to roar rise. I ignore the frantic thump of my heart as over half the nobles raise their hands. I guess while I was reading it, it seemed like we kept going back and forth to like what the nobles were doing. But again, that's just like a description of what the scene is like. Like, I do really enjoy that. So, okay, I did forget to mention that at the trial, the hooded king who seemed to recognize Rave when she was in the cell, he was at the trial, and he, I guess, is still like walking around with his hooded robe, and he's dressed as a Rooney, which apparently is a healer. Don't know why he's doing this. He's just standing there quietly while watching the trial go by, and he apparently votes for her to be eaten by the dragons. I keep thinking that maybe he's going to orchestrate some sort of rescue, because throughout the trial she kept looking at him and being like, why does he keep staring at me? I wish he would leave. So clearly he probably couldn't do anything in the moment, but I'm wondering if he isn't going to try to do something to stop it. I don't know. It seems like that should happen. Anyways, chapter 23, not a whole lot happens. She's just thrown into her cell. She's just thrown into a cell, and she has another conversation with Rook, her prison neighbor. She also recognizes somebody else in the jail who's got like curly hair. She tried to help him, but then he denied her help and was like, I want to do it myself, whatever. All of these little things, I do hope that they do become significant because they are mentioned. So I always think that if something's mentioned, it's important. So I guess we'll just see if any of this stuff, because it does seem like there's like a lot of like little tidbits. Maybe it's just to make everything feel a little bit more real, but I don't know. Okay, so then we're given another letter and we jump forward where Eluin is now 18 years old and she is told by her father that she's going to marry Tyroth Vagar. So I guess he'd be a prince at that moment. And she said that she would rather eat her moon plume poo than marry him. And her father is like, listen, you have to watch your mouth because you would be whipped. Where I grew up, you would be whipped. And she digs her heels in. She's like, I'd rather that than marry Tyroth as well. And so her father actually calls off the wedding and is proud of his daughter for just being who she is. And he tells her that she's remarkable. And that's that. This interaction actually makes me wonder if Eluin isn't Rave. And I've already suspected that before. Just kind of throwing it out there because, like, that's what these fantasies do. They love to do this, like, oh, I forgot who I was, but I'm actually a princess kind of thing. So this makes me wonder if it isn't true because she talks just like Rave in a way. So I'm wondering if that wasn't like this scene wasn't I'm wondering if this letter wasn't like for the purpose of that. After that, she takes her brother out to the where the dragons stay and she talks about how different he's been. He's very withdrawn. He doesn't joke. He doesn't even argue with her when she pushes him. And all he ever wanted to do was ride a moon plume. So she's been working with his moon plume that has damaged wing so that hopefully she can give him that and make him smile again. So that's really sweet. Okay, but now we're going to get into chapter 25. Y'all, this sucks. I had to toss so many clips that had like in the moment gushing moments because this book has gotten so good. It has been chapter by chapter. There's so much going on. Like I wanted to read like chunks and then like give like an update, but literally every single chapter there is some sort of character development or a plot development or something really crazy is happening. I don't even know where to start. I'm technically about to start chapter 49, but the last usable clip I ended off right before chapter 25. So I do want to go do like a recap. I'm glad I've kept all of my notes, but it won't be like my moments of like, oh my gosh. Okay, so we're gonna try to do this. We're gonna just go based off of my notes here. Okay, so we're talking about Rave. We're talking about the king, King Kong. Oh my god. I can't say King Kong because it sounds like King Kong. That's been bugging me the whole time. So the king takes Rave to be healed, and they have the funniest banter. It is just so good. So the king allows Rave to. This is the part where. Oh yeah. So where I left off, I have to remember where I'm at. Where I left off is that Rave is still in the cell. The king comes and takes her out of the cell and he's like, I'm not freeing you. But he does take her to be seen by a healer. And the whole time she's like, what is the point of all this? Like, I'm literally going to die tomorrow. Either way, he takes her to a Rooney, which is a healer. And this Rooney is incredibly gifted. She is blessed with something called Dragon Sight, which allows her to see past runes, like healing runes that kind of like leave a trace all over her skin. So Rave understands that this woman can see what has happened and she like with her eyes she like pleads with her to please don't tell anybody. So she does keep it to herself. This moment is so good because it shows Rave kind of softening to him a little bit because he literally sits there with her, holds her hands, looks in her face while she's being healed because this is a very painful process of her skin melding back together. And she says that it feels like she's just getting whipped all over again. So this is just like, I don't know, I really loved this moment. So then we get another letter. This is where Elium ends up fixing the dragon, her brother's dragon. And the brother's dragon's name is Alem. I'm not sure. These names are kind of difficult to say. Anyway, so her brother's dragon is able to fly again. So she flies off and her brother smiles and says thank you. And then we get into chapter 27. Rave is back in the cell. It's morning and she's waiting to be called, but Serene actually ends up sending I don't know, she's like a colleague or a friend. She works with the rebels and her name is Uno to break her free. But Uno is also a seer, so right before she attempts to break her out, she does see that if Rave does not go to the Colosseum, then Serene, Uno, Ruse, all of them that like work in the little shop, they're all gonna die. And so she ends up leaving. So in chapter 28, Rave is walked to the Colosseum. While the dragons are like circling ahead, the queen recognizes her. Rave is like watching the queen react to her, and the queen just starts screaming and trying to make everything stop. The dragons are starting to circle and they're coming down for her. The queen ends up using her ability to like call on either air or water, probably air, and tries to scare the dragons away. So those dragons do get scared away. And but what I'm just wondering, and I'm still wondering this still while I'm at chapter 49, who is the queen and how does she know Rave? Or how does she know, like, why did she panic like that? Like, how does she know her? There is one thing I noticed because I was trying to go back in the book where it tells you all the characters, and I was trying to look for who might the queen of the shade be, because I think that's where they're at, the shade. But it doesn't really tell you. They're very focused on the primary family, the Vagars, but they don't really tell you much about who they're married to. Then, when the queen and Rave is like, oh wow, okay, so that happened, I'm still alive, then a massive saber dragon, I forgot what it's called, a huge dragon comes down and snatches her out of the ground, like stake and all. She's tied up to a stake. He just snatches her up and carries her off. Does not eat her, carries her off. And I think when I realized that the dragon obviously wasn't going to kill her, I was like, no freaking way. It's Khan. Khan summoned this dragon to save her, right? So at this time, though, Rave does not know. And I think as a reader, you're not really supposed to know, but like there is kind of a lot of things I would say that are kind of predictable, but I don't care. I'm still super here for it. All right, so then we get another letter. This is Alum. She's still 18. Her family is poisoned and dies. And she's told that it is her turn to wear the Aether Stone. I swear to goodness, I cannot freaking pronounce datum. Datum. I don't know why I struggle with that word so much. So we're just gonna call it the Aether Stone, which is like in like a circlet or something that like fuses to the wearer's head. So she's told that she needs to now wear it. All right, so getting into chapter 30. So the the Khan, the Khan. Oh my god. Okay, so we're back to Rave's perspective, and the king is waiting for her as the dragon just spits her out. And they go through this whole thing, like bantering and stuff. And Rave is still kind of hell bent on being afraid that Khan is going to kill her. And he's like, why would I kill you? I have rescued you. Actually, he doesn't tell her that yet, but that's going through my mind as the reader. I'm like, oh my god, at this point, you're just getting annoying. What you should be asking yourself is, why do you keep rescuing me? What am I to you? Don't worry, we'll get there. But you have to admit, there's a lot going on in this girl's life. Like, I feel like I would just be the same, you know, just be like terrified of everything happening. Okay, so anyways, he ends up taking her on Dragonback, and they are heading towards Dom, which apparently is a whole other mystery. Nobody goes there, but this is, I guess, his home. It's one of the kingdoms that the brothers or that the siblings rule. So apparently this is his kingdom, and this is like a really big mystery. Like nobody goes there. Also, I have to note that she's been riding around in a dragon's mouth, and she is like covered in dragon saliva. And this is just hilarious. Okay, so then we get another letter. Now that Eluin's family is gone, she is now wearing the Aether Stone. She's told that the people of Erythia will not accept a queen that is weakened by the stone until she's wed to someone with more than 2 beads. Either 2 or more than 2 beads, I'm not sure. And also, she's not old enough to rule at this time. And remember, her father allows her to have like the freedoms and stuff that other places in their world do not have. So she is no longer under the protection of her family and her father's rules. So now she has to assimilate. Now she has to follow the rest of the world's rules, and she's not allowed to speak for herself. She's supposed to be remained veiled until she's wed. She's not allowed to have any input on this. So whoever she marries, whatever happens, it's not for her. And as a reminder, when they were first talking about it with her father was saying that she was supposed to wed one of the brothers, but I think it only left two of them available. But it seemed to be that Tyroth was the one that she was supposed to be wed to. So I'm thinking that that was still true. All right, so then we get into chapter 32. So Rave is incredibly dirty, filthy, covered in dragon saliva and dirt and God knows what else. So they make a pit stop. They're not quite to dawn yet. They make a pit stop and they find a pool and they both have to bathe. And this is one of those forced proximity scenes that I apparently am a sucker for. And apparently it's either just really in this is like the fifth book I've read this forced proximity scene in. Am I tired of it? No, absolutely not. So Con and Ray bathe in a pool. He also pulls the pin from her shoulder because it was before she got healed. She was cut up. She was also shot with a pin. So there's like a pin, an iron pin is stuck in her shoulder. And I think that this actually cuts her off from using her abilities because I guess they are like a kind of fairy. So iron works against them or something like that. This pin is also just like festering, getting infected in her arm. There's like a lot of banter going on back and forth. Then they also talk about Khan's upbringing and how he killed his father for revenge because he loved Eluin. Apparently, he was in love with Eluin and she died. So, if now I already know the answer to this, but as I was going through this, I wasn't 100% sure. I had my suspicions that Rave is Eluin. Whether or not Rave is aware of that or not, I don't think she is aware of it. And that's just a complete and utter mystery, at least at this point. I have obviously have a lot more intel now, but at this point, I was just like, I knew it, but like it was still like a reveal, you know, when he says Eluin. All right, so then getting into chapter 3. So Khan picks Rave up and just like throws her over his shoulder like a sack of grain and carries her to this house. And this is his ma's hideaway. And I just loved the descriptions of walking through this house and seeing just how freaking cute it is. It's just like this little cottage core cottage, and it will just make your little cottage core heart sing. She talks about how like the tables and chairs like at the bar are like tree stumps that just there's no seams in between like the floor. It's almost like they just sprouted out of the ground, which I know they said it. I just there's so much to think about, you know. I know they said it, but I think he is a boulder and also has Ignos. So he's fire and earth. So I'm just like sitting here imagining like if you had the power of earth and you could build yourself a house, like I would do that. I would just like have it grow from the earth and like yeah. That's like I just like imagining how that all probably looked. It sounds so so cute. Rave, for all of her murderous intentions, does have a soft spot. She has a lot of soft spots. We know this about her, but she feels really wrong about being in his mom's house because, like, her issues aren't with his mom. You know, she says that she has no offering, which is apparently a northern culture tradition, and I really thought that was interesting because, like, when we are invited to other people's homes, like there's different cultural traditions depending on where you are. So she was like, I just don't feel right about being here and I don't have any offerings. And Khan's just like, so Khan actually growls. And I immediately thought that if my suspicion is correct that she is Eluin, of course she's part of the family, but she just doesn't know it. Anyway, so he growls at her and is like, just come on in. And then he says, she's like, well, I'm not family. And he's just like, just come in. And he said that she could just give her name essentially as an offering. And when she says Rave, which actually at this point, I thought that he actually already knew her name, but apparently he didn't. So when she says her name his face just completely changes. Like something is familiar. Like it's suspicious why she's using that name. So it makes me wonder if she is aware of being Eluin, but then like where does Rave come in? So I guess we'll find out. I know the answer to this. At this point, I did not know. Which is such a shame because like I said, when I filmed this originally, I was like, "Oh my gosh, what is this?" Like the reactions were so real, you know? So apparently this name Rave means something to Eluin and to him. So then Rave goes and asks about the moon shards because remember in the prison, he made a deal with the Rook for in exchange for moon shards. So then we go through kind of a history of the way you get moon shards is by fallen moons, and there's only been 3, and only one of those was a moon plume moon, which fell 20 years earlier in the place where Rave was reborn. That's right. That's what she said. She said she used to find moon shard pieces all over the place in the place that she was reborn, meaning she is Eluin, right? I also think that for whatever reason, Khan is collecting the moon shards for something. Maybe he thought that he could bring her back, but then he said something like, I think it's during this conversation that he said something like, well, it doesn't matter anyways. I already have what I need. So I wonder if that's the change of like why he decided to rescue her because now he doesn't have to hunt for the moon shards. I don't know. Hopefully we do circle around on that and get some details. So all right, so moving on to chapter 34. Khan makes them a meal. Apparently he has got all this stuff like growing around in like his garden. So he's like cutting off all this like fresh ingredients and has Rave hold it and then takes it into the kitchen to like cook it. So anyways, he makes this meal. It's like a soup. He like hands her the bowl with the spoon and expects her to be able to eat with bound hands. So as she fumbles the spoon, dropping it, getting really, really frustrated, Khan goes and places a hand on her shoulder and is like, I'll, his intention was just like, relax, I'll go get your spoon as a kind gesture. Well, she freaks out, spins around, bites his arm, bites him. I'm like, damn, girl, you are like feral. What are you doing biting everybody? It's kind of weird. Like when she was possessed by the other, she was like bitey and feral, but that like makes more sense than like while she's not. So I thought that was kind of weird and excessive, but whatever. Anyways, obviously he reacts. He like pins her against the wall, like gives her the rundown of like what the hell. All I'm trying like you could learn to ask for some help sometimes. That's all it's gonna do. As she's stewing over there against the wall, he goes and sits down and she's like kind of going through realizing that she has been really rude. So she apologizes very sincerely and thanks him for the meal and she decides to still not ask for help. Instead, she like makes a fish face, sticks her face in her bowl and sucks like sucks up her soup. Khan starts fucking laughing. He starts laughing so hard. She responds by laughing and spews soup everywhere, all through her nose, everything. She's laughing really hard. And then she's like, wow, why does laughing feel so good? Like she just doesn't laugh a lot. And then he gets really quiet and he's like staring at her in this way, like in this like really mysterious way. And the way Rave describes it is to him, his face, he looks like it's just like really heartbreaking, you know? So she stops laughing, she shuts it down, and she's like, I don't know you, and you don't know me. We're not cozy. I'm literally still plotting your death as we speak. So then he shuts down and becomes really cold as well. And this breaks my heart. This breaks my heart for Khan because at this point, I was still not 100% sure. No, wait, I was sure because at this point, Rave is Eluin and he loved her. And to see her there, but not his, and her not know who he is, like, that just feels so heart wrenching, you know? So, yeah. Ouch. All right, so then getting into chapter 35, she attempts to escape. And this scene, oh my god. First, she goes to bed and she has been pocketing a dragon scale. They're really, really sharp, really strong. She like stuck it up her sleeve She's told where she can go to sleep. She asks where the bathroom is. I guess he goes in and goes downstairs. So she's using the bathroom. She digs out the scale, cuts the bindings off of her wrists, finds pajamas, and gets all like ready for bed and everything. She goes and lays in bed. She's like waiting until he goes to sleep. So then she like creeps downstairs. She's about to like open the door, and then she's replaying like, oh yeah, he's a really talented hunter. I will never be free of him if I just run away. He's going to track me down. So she's like, "Ugh, I'm going to have to kill him." But she doesn't want to kill him because he's been nothing but kind to her. And she's like, I don't even deserve his kindness. I don't know what's up with him, but, he has been really kind. Either way, she has her goals. So she's like trying to school herself into assassin mode. Like, I can let go of any personal, this isn't personal, but I need my freedom. I'm just going to kill him, be done with it, put on a hard face. So she goes over there and straddles him, and she's about to stab him, but his eyes open, and his eyes are like fire because he's got like ignos or whatever. So he's got like the fire. So I guess they flicker like fire. And something changes in her immediately, and she gets super confused. Now she doesn't want to kill him, she wants to kiss him, and she's just like, I don't know what's happening to me, but like all I want is to be touched and blah 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 blah. So he sees that flash in her face and he looks at her and he goes, I see you. I see you, Rave. And that even is more confusing for her. So now she's just totally turned on. He's like, do you want me to touch you or something like that? And she goes, yes. So she starts begging for it. Yeah. This whole scene, I'm like, what the hell? Are they actually going to do it? Because no, no. And like, they are like, they're going, like, they're this close. They're this close to just doing the deed. And he asks her, are you sure this is what you want? And she says yes. And then he's like, so you just want meaningless encounter? And she says yes. And he goes, absolutely not with me. He goes, if that's what you want, you're not going to get it from me. So go back to bed and get some rest because we have a long day tomorrow. And she is just stunned, totally stunned, trying to process everything that just happened, the shutdown, because that sucks being shut down like that. He's like, get the F off of me. So then, of course, she's like, scatters, goes upstairs. I get that she's super embarrassed. Like, that would be really embarrassing. She decides to get dressed and she finds a tiny little window that she believes she can crawl out of. So she does go ahead and escape. But it's pouring freaking rain, which makes it incredibly dangerous pass. So she sees like this cliff that she feels like that's probably her best bet to like get away. Then a flash flood comes and like takes her out. And then we get another letter. So Eluin, she is taken by force to fly to Dom on a molten maw. Unfortunately, she has to leave her moon plume behind because moon plumes cannot survive in the sun. And she's being taken to Tyroth. She's supposed to marry Tyroth. So Caddoc is actually one that comes to retrieve her, and his wife apparently shows her a lot of kindness. And that's really all that kind of happens in the letter. Last night, I just ended up reading a big chunk, so I read from chapters 39 to 48 without doing any other updates. 39 to 48 was all about this warrior clan that Khan said that he was a part of when he was telling his story about his father just kind of like threw him to the wolves and was like, well, you can just go join this warrior clan, and if you survive their training, then maybe it'll earn you some respect. Yeah, so that's how he talks to him. So she's floating down the river. She gets knocked out. She wakes up, and there's these two guys trying to help her get out of the river to safety. So they help rescue her. She's like, okay, guys, thanks. And they're like wanting her to follow them. And she's like, nah, I got places to be. Then they encounter what is known as a fate herder. So these are apparently mythic. Like, these are never seen. If you said you saw one, people would laugh at you because I guess they're invisible unless they're hurting you. So, yeah, of course. She's trying to take off and leave them, but the fate herder is like, nah, and corners her and backs her up until she has no choice but to follow the guys. So they take her back to their clan. And apparently, we don't know this at the time. We're just kind of going through the motions. Like, she doesn't know what's happening. until it's like too late. So apparently there's this prophecy that the fate herder would bring the one who will have offspring that will stop the moons from ever falling again. So at this time, she doesn't know the prophecy. Or maybe they do tell her because they do have somebody that does speak her language. But through all of this, they keep talking to her in a different language that she doesn't know. They do send someone her way that does speak her language to kind of translate. So they get her all dressed up in this red outfit and they paint blood all over her. They have two warriors that have to fight to the death for the honor of bonding with her and providing offspring for this whole prophecy. And she was like, oh, hell no, absolutely not. She doesn't learn this until they're fighting. And she's like, okay, well, that's not going to happen. So then when they announce the winner, she's like, no, I'm not doing this. And she starts yelling, I will fight for myself. I will fight for myself. So they translate, they get her ready. So now she has to fight the winner that just won. So she has to kill him, but all he has to do is get her to submit. Because, of course, honestly, I think this is why she lost, because otherwise she would have killed him. But he, like, in mid battle, he, like, throws a snake at her. It bites her. And I guess she flings it off. And then as she's continuously fighting, she's, like, seeing double. Like, the venom is going through her and it's causing her to lose. And she's like, wow, seriously, there's no honor in that. He does get the advantage over her. And just as, like, they're about to call it, like, yeah, he won. Now you have to bond with him. Khan flies in. Of course he does. He sees this whole fiasco. He yanks the dude off of her. She goes with the girl that's the translator and like goes into like a tent or something. And Khan starts fighting with him and trying to be like, hey, she doesn't know your customs. This isn't happening. Da 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 da. There's apparently no way out of it. So Khan is like, okay. So he takes his necklace. Now, all these guys, they have like a necklace, right? And this is their offering. When the first two guys came, like they both brought their like offering, like a necklace or like a little thing to her and placed it before her. So, and she has to accept it. Of course, she didn't know what she was accepting because the translator was just like, you need to accept that. And she's like, okay, I accept it. And then they told her what was happening. So, anyways, when Khan comes and puts his necklace down in front of her, which she is already aware that this necklace is the two intertwined dragons for the one that Khan was in love with. So you can tell that this means so much, and he's sacrificing all of this part of himself to save her. And then he goes and kills the other guy. This was something else that was just like so big to me. I loved this moment. Okay, so then they make it to Dom, and we meet Avery, his sister. And Avery has her own point of view chapter as well, which I appreciate so much. We learn so much about what has happened. So Khan and Avery hate their father and the kingdom that he created. They absolutely hate and disagree with Kadik and Tyroth's ideals and who they are. They really don't like them either. Everyone apparently knew Eluin there, and they're all tripping over the fact that why the heck does this girl look like Eluin? What the heck is going on? We all saw her die. So Rave is dying. Like she has a really severe head wound and she is dying and needs a healer. So they get the healer. The healer again has that dragon sight and can see all the rooms, but she can also see something else, which she doesn't tell Khan. She tells Avery. And Avery says, thank you for telling me. Don't tell Khan yet. Avery's also asking a bunch of questions that Khan didn't really get around to asking yet. Like, where's the Aether Stone? Because if she's Eluin, she would have the Aether Stone. She's also asking what really happened when she left without an explanation. Eluin apparently just picked up and left with no word and a letter. And this makes Avery extremely mad at Eluin, but she also realizes that maybe there's more to it and she needs to find out what. Avery also warns Khan to tread lightly, saying that she'll incinerate herself and turn to ash in his hands. And he's like, I know. And so, like, I'm thinking, like, what? Like a phoenix? But now I'm coming full circle to, oh, yeah. And then she was also reborn like a phoenix. So I don't know. I don't know. But I guess that also explains being reborn, right? Also, Avery remembers that Eluin used to keep a journal, and she used to keep it with them at their house or whatever, but then she must have taken it back to the Shade whenever she left. So Avery now wants to hopefully glean some more explanations, so she's going to go to the Shade and retrieve the journal. Also, one more tidbit that we learn through all this is that Eluin apparently has 4 of the elements, which so far we know that having 2 of the elements is exceptional, and 3 is like really, really strong and powerful. Also, when you wear the Aether Stone, it mutes it like shuts you off from being able to hear any of the elements songs, as they like to say in the book. So I want to go over what the deities are and the powers, which honestly, it's not hard to figure out which element they are because I've been hearing a bunch of them kind of thrown around, but I haven't really been committing them to memory just because I didn't have like a huge frame of reference. So we have Balder, which is the god of the ground, Kalis, which is the god of the aether, Ignos, which is god of fire, Rain, which is the goddess of water, and Claude, which is the goddess of air, right? Boulder, like a boulder. Was it Ignos, like igniting? And Rain, of course, rain. And Claude, like cloud. Anyways, I thought they were kind of funny when I actually like thought about it a little bit more. Okay, so back to Rave and the elements. We have not really seen her use any of the elements. Also, it makes me wonder if Kalis, the god of the Aether, is that like the other? Is she able to access that one? So far, we haven't seen her use any of the elements, but we know that she has access to 2 of them. I think one of the healers does say something about she has fire. So let me go back here really quick to this page. I think I put a note on it because, okay, I said that the healer found something that she didn't want the king to know. And so let me tell you what that is. It was like, oh, Vea. Did I say Vea? Who did I? Oh, I said Avery. Oh my goodness. My notes auto corrected Vea to Avery. So I totally messed up the sister's name. The sister's name is Vea. I pull the silk sheet up to her chin, sweeping a tendril of freshly brushed hair from her now healed brow. Not even a trace of a scar she would have forever worn, like a fucked up version of the datum she once bore. You did well, I told Agni, who dips her head and thinks, pausing by the end of the bed. Okay, so Agni is the healer. I did think it was really interesting that she was talking about where the scar would be for the Aether Stone, because it does like latch on to the forehead of the wearer. So if she died and was reborn, then technically in her new life she wouldn't have worn it. But maybe Vea isn't aware that she was like reborn. She just thinks that like she just never died. I don't know. That's kind of confusing. She says, there's something I didn't want to bring up in front of the males, mostly because they seemed on edge. And she says, the patients, as you know, the gift of dragon sight runs thick in my family line. So once the blood was cleansed from her skin, I could see the layered stain of many runes. Many, many runes. But she has one wound that doesn't appear to have been mended by runes. It glows a shade of silver I've never seen before, right here, placing her hand directly above Eluin's heart. That's weird. They called her Eluin instead of Rave. Avery says that her blood chills. It's a killing wound, she continues, not one folk survive, since healing a stab to the heart takes more time than the patient usually has. All the heat drains from my face. I swallow. Okay, so then there's another character there named Pyrock, and he apparently did overhear this. So then they have a conversation. He says, don't tell the king, huh? He says. And she says, don't look at me like that, stalking towards the opposite cedar and dumping herself on it. He's so fucking happy to have her back. He's not asking nearly enough questions. Besides, you don't slaughter your enemies with a blunt blade. You sharpen it until it's so honed you're certain it'll do the job. And Pyrock says, what do you know? Let me rephrase. Is whatever you do know going to lead us to war with our fledgling army? He says, what have we been preparing for all these phases, if not to swipe the filth from the board and undo all of Pa's hard bloody work. Okay, so they are working on a big rebellion. One other thing that we learn is where Rave gets her name because she asks, why is she calling herself after her middle name? And Khan's like, I have no idea. If she truly has no recollection of her middle name, of her past life, then how would she come up with that name? But then we're also seeing that she's having little glimpses, like she's remembering things, which I didn't really say in here, like, oh, it's when Khan gives her the necklace, she like has a flashback of a time when she's seen the necklace before. She's wearing the necklace, and obviously they are like being really intimate, which obviously hasn't happened. So she's having like a flashback to her previous life. So, one other thing that they allude to, I don't know where it's at in the book, but Avery's asking him, like, didn't you see what happened? And I don't know if this is just something that I was thinking. In the letter at the end of this, we discover that as much as she told her moon plume to stay behind, the moon plume kept following her to Dom, and on its way it was like burned and so hurt that it couldn't fly anymore. It did happen to make its way to the hutch where she's staying now, but it can never leave the hutch because it'll burn. So that's a thing. And in that letter, she talks about how she's so tired of losing everything. She feels completely hopeless. She's lost all of her choices. She has to marry this tyrant that she's not happy about. She doesn't want to lose her dragon. She feels like that's all that she has left. I forgot, she says something like if her moon plume could just wrap her in its wings and become a moon and turn to stone with her. So then it got me thinking of, is that exactly what happened? Did the moon plume wrap her in in its wings, go up to the sky, become stone, and then fell, and thus Eluin became Rave? Maybe she was just like biding her time sleeping, or maybe she actually died and became reborn. She said, oh, she was reborn. Anyways, okay, that was a long recap. Oh, please, for the love of God, tell me that it recorded the sound. I probably should have checked this sooner. All right, chapters 49 to 51. All right, so Rave wakes up in what used to be Eluin's room, and we wouldn't have known this except for Vea states as much when she's talking about the journal. So Eluin is actually going through, like, trying to find something to wear. She wakes up and she's wearing this, like, kind of like a black slip dress, and she recognizes that someone dressed her, bathed her, even brushed her hair. And she's like, what did I do to deserve this? So she's going through the room and finding clothes to wear. And she's like surprised that everything seems to fit her. And I just think that's so funny because she's like, wow, this is just like unexpected. I would have thought this would fit me. Little does she know, like, it used to be hers. And of course, it's her style, so she likes it. Also gets a greeting from Vea with a very strong, don't break my brother's heart again, which Ray really doesn't understand. She's like, what do you mean again? Because the reason Vea says that is because she's wearing the necklace. So when she first comes in, sorry, when Vea first comes in, she's like, you don't even understand how important that is, her necklace. And then they kind of do circles and she's like, well, don't hurt my brother, or I'll hurt you. So Rave is just kind of like, well, I guess she just doesn't understand. Like, he wasn't doing it because he was expecting anything from me either. He's just like saving me, desperate times, and all that stuff. As Vea leaves, Rave actually doesn't know what possessed her, but she like says Vea's name. She like hollers it down the hall, and Vea turns, and Rave is like, yeah, I don't know what that was. Like, I don't even know you. And Vea's like, I'm gonna figure out what's going on. Like, she doesn't trust Rave. She doesn't trust her at all. She's very, like I said, she's very resentful of how she left things with Khan back when she was Eluin. And she's not buying this bit at all. She thinks there's something off. And I kind of love that about Vea. And I love that she's like kind of biding her time and kind of coming up with a plan to like get the truth. So after that whole encounter, Rave is dressed and she decides to take a golden candlestick, which she plans to hawk at the city. She's actually looking for one of the branches of the stores that she used to work for, the curling quill. I forgot what it's called. And then as she's leaving, she sees a couple of guys standing there who are like playing a game, they eat snacks. She's like, hey, you mind if I take these? And they like, she doesn't really recognize any of the food that's there. In my opinion, they're kind of like chicharrones from what we're used to here in the United States, but they are like some kind of fatty, crunchy chip thing. But by the description, I think that they're like chicharrones. She takes her like bowl of snacks. She saunters off to the exit, finds a guard there, talks him into giving her a sword. She's like, it's kind of heavy. How about the dagger? And the guy, like the door guard, is like, okay. And it's because she's wearing the necklace. So that signifies that she's with the king. So, like, she's kind of his boss, I guess. And then she's got this empty bowl of snacks. She's like, oh, hey, you mind taking this for me? I don't know what it was. I just thought that that was so funny, that interaction. I just had to talk about it because I thought it was so funny. I love when books do those like little details, like we could have left it out. She could have just stormed the castle and ran her own, but like they took into account that like she's been hungry, snacking on stuff. Like I don't know, it's just like funny. But as she's leaving, Pyrock, which we know is in the loop of the secrets with Vea. So Pyrock, he decides to escort her into the city, and he's like, "Oh, to get this price for your candlestick," even though he's kind of in protection of the castle and all that stuff. But anyways, and then they're also planning on going to get a drink. I think that he is just kind of being friendly with her and helping her along so that she will lead him to learn some stuff about her. So on to chapter 51. She makes her way into the Curly Quill, where she's greeted with a mind reader, and he just freaking knows everything. It's really crazy. Like, she walks up to the counter and he's like, "Oh, yeah, so you're Rave and you're looking for da 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 da. And you want them to think that you are actually here to get supplies. So you're going to need like a cover and da 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 da." I'm just like blown away. I'm like, this guy is so interesting. Also, the Curly Quills, I guess, are like a front for the rebel group. So the guy that runs it is also part of the AF, which Sareem is for. And of course, he already knows that she has money of her own, but she doesn't want to use it because then Sareem will know that she's not dead and she wants to remain dead to everybody who knows her until she's ready for them to find out. So I just thought this was so interesting, and it's like really good at keeping track of the storyline and stuff. So, and like having a plan, like a long term plan. I did watch somebody's critique of the book. They were saying that the way the book was written really made them think that it was like a pantser style writing style, where you just kind of like start writing and keep writing. And I guess it's telling when you read a book. Maybe I'm not that well read, but to me, it feels really well planned out. But anyway, also, he comes to tears when he takes a deeper look at her and he sees her heart, which is something I don't think that as the reader we have a full grasp of, but it kind of seems to imply that her memory blockage is a choice and she's choosing to block out the pain, which I do think that this could be the authors kind of talking about trauma in a way, like the way we block out painful memories and stuff. It could be like a trauma response versus just being reborn. Or if you're reborn, should you remember your previous life? I don't know. When he brings it up and he starts kind of revealing what he's seeing through her memory, it seems to be like things that she doesn't even know, but then she's like, enough. I don't want to know anymore. I don't want to talk about it. Like, she's still repressing, but she knows she's repressing. It's very strange to me. There is something that doesn't quite add up. The fact that she's so stuck on Rec and getting her revenge on Rec with everything that has happened through meeting Khan, now meeting Vea, going to the Dom, having these flashbacks. I'm like, how can you still be so stuck on your revenge against Rec? Like, that's all you can think of for every single moment. That's what your goal is to do, is to get to. And everything that you comply to go through is just so that you can eventually get free so that you can go get your revenge. And I'm like, this is getting annoying at this point. No slight on the book, just the character. Like, I'm just kind of annoyed. I'm like, at a certain point, aren't you just like, this is all really weird? Maybe forget about that because she's not even on his radar anymore. Apparently, she's dead to everybody in the shade. So it seems like, why doesn't she just like try to figure out what all this weird stuff is about? Why people seem to know her? Why Khan seems to know her? Why is he being nice to her? What he wants from her? I don't know. She hates her life back at the shade. So, like, why is she so gung ho on getting back to it? Obviously, we know it's because she's running away from ever having to confront these issues, even if she doesn't realize it yet, I think. I think that's what we're at. Anyways, carrying on. Okay, guys, I think we're about to get into something really heart-wrenching. Okay, so we have another diary entry where Eluin has been like really sad and depressed, curled with her dragon, sleeping in the hutch with next to her dragon. And Khan comes and picks her up and dumps her in a bath and leaves, fully clothed and leaves. And then his sister Vea is there to scrub her down and they talk. First, they have this really interesting conversation about nudity, and she's like, this nudity isn't something to be ashamed of or worried about. We actually like, I really think that concept is just really cool. She tells that she teaches combat at their academy there in Dom, and she would like to learn, she could come and learn with her. And I'm like, so that's how she learned all of her combat skills. That's really cool. So you can see the development of the relationship there as being friends. Then we're with Pyrock and Rave at a place for drinks. And in my opinion, they're like on a rooftop bar and they're like looking out over the city. They're talking about all kinds of stuff. And she's trying to get the cufflink off of her wrist. And I realized this a few chapters ago because I was asking, well, she's got all this power. How come she isn't using it? It's because the shackle on her arm is iron, so it cuts her off from her powers. That's been the deal with that. But Pyrock had suddenly disappeared and Khan is here. So now they're having a big conversation. She just lets loose on the things about their world that just she can't live with. And she can't support anyone. Like, she will murder anyone who supports that, taking younglings and forcing them into the military. Like, if they have any shadow of gift, they snatch them up and put them in the military and start training them when they're little, and they should just be kids. And then if they're nulls, and she like points to her own ear, they snatch them up and punch a hole through the ear, marking them as a null. And so it just takes away their innocence. And also, if you're a null, you're also like a target for SA. So there's like so much about the world that has been corrupt because like in the shade and the fade, places where cons or brothers rule. I mean, they make these decisions, right? They allow these kinds of things to happen. Anyways, so that's put on the table. I think that's pretty interesting. But she feels them getting closer and she admits that there is some sort of weird chemistry. She doesn't understand it. She's like, I get that there's a weird chemistry, but like, and then she takes the necklace and like holds it up to him and she's like, thank you for letting me borrow this. He makes no move to take Malmer. He doesn't even look at it. It was not lent, Rave. The words land slow and hard, lacking the softness his previous sentence, casting my skin in little bumps. I shove my hand closer to his chest. This means things that I can't give you. I'm already upset. Like, this breaks my heart. This just breaks my heart. He watches me with the honed regard of someone inching toward a wild dragon, head tilting. What do you think I want? And she doesn't say this out loud. She's like looking out over the city. A warm heart, offspring to carry on his heritage. At the very least, someone who gets along with his swaggering sister. I swallow, refusing to meet his eyes, as I settled Melmer on the table and stand. Shouldering my satchel, I edge from the booth and push free of the fluttering curtains. Around him, sometimes words just feel inadequate. God. I mean, you can't know who you love sometimes, but like, I don't know, she's just bugging the shit out of me. She's absolutely bugging the shit out of me. Like, at least fucking communicate. Been nothing but kind and sweet and helpful, and she just keeps pushing and pushing and pushing, and like, I can't handle it.